On this episode of Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, we talked about the portal wars. We talked about Redfin's financial issues. We talked about artificial intelligence and the human connection part of all of that. Going to be a great show. Tune in. You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, James Dwiggins, along with my co-host, Crazy Uncle Keith, aka Keith Robinson. Gonna reverse that from now on. It's gonna be my thing.
Okay, yes, sir. What's up?
Tell us about John Berkowitz, our guest.
Man, we had a great conversation that was far-ranging as they usually are. We talked about the power of being a gangster and a scholar. We talked about his most unique answer to favorite superhero. We talked about Victoria's Secrets and the Hell Zone. We talked about dangerous opportunity, the portal wars, the boom is coming.
We went deep on Redfin, by the way.
We
that was
went deep on Redfin. Yep. And
Yep.
The real estate boom is coming and how to prepare for it. Great conversation, far-reaching and thoughtful. One of my favorites that we've had lately.
Absolutely. John, welcome to the show. We are super excited to have you. Our listeners and viewers know that Keith and I were obviously telling jokes based upon Keith's red dome going on right now of laughter.
It was funny. It was funny.
There's always jokes before the show. John, it's been a while. I haven't seen you since, I don't know, some show we ran into as usual. It's been a few months at least. So
Inman, probably
Inman. That's probably accurate. So, we've known each other for a while. Thanks for being on the episode. Let's start with just a quick background on who is John and how did you get where you are? A little bit about your background, obviously with OJO and Movado, and then even, I know you were at Yodel, and that's kind of where you got your big start. So we'll start there.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm a New Haven, Connecticut boy, born and raised. Grew up as a son of a small business owner, owned a commercial construction company, and therefore, entrepreneurship was built into the DNA, for better or worse. You guys know that from the very early days.
Sometimes it's a curse.
Yeah, sometimes it's great. Sometimes it sucks. But I graduated college in 2005. At the end of college, applied for a job to sell advertising. The person very thoughtfully told me I should never be in sales. And I should go something else.
Wow. Did they say what you should be in? Did they give you? No, just not this.
It was pretty brutal. I mean, it was the only interview I've ever done, and I definitely didn't do good. But they also had a lot they could have done different. But they basically were like, "No, you suck." I think about this all the time because this company is a company called JC.co. They do all the advertising in the airport. So every time I travel, I'm reminded.
Oh, you're reminded of it?
That's like breaking up with a supermodel. Like you're just going to see them everywhere. That's terrible.
Well, it all worked out. I then went out and found, the alternative by starting basically the next day a company that went and did what they did better.
Nice.
So we started Yodel. The idea was to help small businesses have an unfair advantage online. At that time in 2005, all the people that were on the internet were the big businesses, not the small businesses.
Sure.
So joined up with a couple buddies, chased that thesis for 10 years, built it to 1,500 employees, and then eventually sold it for $350 million to web.com.
Good for you.
Congrats.
Yeah, it was good.
Love that.
The journey, I mean, it sounds cliche, but legitimately, like the fun part and the awesome part was building a valuable business with a bunch of smart people over the years. Mm-hmm. I realized that I wasn't done and wanted to go build something more significant, something bigger, higher impact, take some of the mistakes we made in the Yodel days, do them differently. And so when I knew we were selling Yodel, I went and started working on OJO. With a guy that I actually met on my Yodel journey, and that origin story was, like all real estate companies, had nothing to do with real estate, had to do with consumer decision making at scale, AI before the second to last AI hype wave.
Like 3 AI hype waves ago.
3 AI hype waves ago. Navigated 2 AI winters.
It takes a while for it to catch on and become a slogan. So yeah.
And then we kind of meandered on this path into real estate. The idea of getting into real estate really came from, we were trying to help people make decisions at scale, and we needed a specific, important decision to kind of prove our thesis around. And we looked at a bunch of different options. We met Chris Heller, who was the CEO at Keller Williams at the time, and told him what we wanted to do with technology and consumers. And he was the first to really see that kind of bridge between the consumer pain point and the agent pain point and how it could be solved. And
now he works at OJO. So
now he's our president, and partner, and
it's a good get. Smart guy.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, we'll dive into OJO and go into your acquisition of Movado and other stuff too. But we like to do our rapid fire questions and ask some fun things just to let the viewers and listeners get to know you. So Keith, start us out.
Okay.
On the first one.
John, if you were to be a superhero, who would it be and why?
Cheesy enough, I ask all interview questions about what's your superpower and then what's your kryptonite. This is going to be controversial, but if we call Nick Fury a superhero,
he's a superhero.
Nick Fury,
he's a superhero.
My superpower legitimately is finding superheroes and rallying them. We just
a good one. That's a good one. That's original too. No one's actually said him, so I'm impressed. Reminds me of that
only superhero that gets a gun. My son reminded me the other day. Reminded my wife the other day. So there's that.
That's that. Okay.
And I think you could pull off a patch. So the eye patch, I think you could. Yeah, you got a little pirate in you. You can pull it off. I like it. I like it.
All right, I'll take the next one. Favorite book or podcast this year and why?
Well, I haven't listened to this one yet. This will set the record.
Okay.
There was a really impactful book. It was a lot to get through, but it's called The Good Life. It's the longest longitudinal study on human happiness ever done out of Harvard, and it basically studies what makes all types of humans happy.
Interesting.
And it had a pretty profound impact on my life, and I thought it was a good, crazy data-driven book on happiness.
And you like it because of the sort of analytical side of it? Just kind of resonated with you?
Things, most of the things I knew, but the amount of data that it beat me over the head with to actually change my mind was valuable.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to put that on my reading list. So
I will.
All right, can you take us home and then we'll dive in? So
last one. If you could have lunch with one person, current or historical, who would it be and why?
Oh man, you guys have me on cheesy mode this morning.
Good.
I'm going to go with my dad. My dad was a pretty important guy in my life. I haven't been with him in 11 years since he passed away. And you give me one lunch with one human, I'm gonna try to. It's
a good one. It's not cheesy. That's not at all. That's exactly how it should be.
I'm gonna ask a follow up to that. Is there one guiding principle? I'm sure there are many, but that stands out, maybe professionally or personally, that you learned either by observation or by instruction from your dad?
You're just a purveyor of truth. He was so, there wasn't this moral principle. He generally was a good human that believed in truth. And so you couldn't pin him down. He was a tough guy. He was a nerdy guy. He was somewhere across between a gangster and a scholar. And the only thread in all of the places you could see him and try to pin him down was just, you knew the truth was exuding from him.
Hey, you know what? We need more of that.
Yeah, I hope my kids someday describe me as a gangster and a scholar, because that's high praise, man. That's solid. That's great. That is awesome.
Actually, and we need more of that in this country because the truth doesn't exist anymore. So.
Yeah, no.
All right, man. So let's dive in. So you got into this journey with OJO, and tell me if I'm off here, but I remember you guys were doing some pretty pioneering stuff with. So it was a group overseas. You had a second division. It was somewhere in a very beautiful island place that I think most of us want to live permanently.
It's the Caribbean, right?
Yeah,
St. Lucia.
St. Lucia. That's right.
Incredible island in the Caribbean.
So you got into this sort of the lead gen space. I'm simplifying here, but I want to hear more about that, and just like, you guys were pioneers in this and you've done a lot of movement in that space. So tell us a little bit about that and sort of what the vision was, and then I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. So
the origin story was, we generally, it's ironic now on what the business has evolved to, but what I would have told you in 2016 is the world doesn't need another Zillow and they don't need another Nexthome. Like what they need is the bridge between those two, because we were looking at it and saying, and this wasn't unique to real estate, but big purchases, consumers would spend a lot of time researching it themselves, and then eventually, often too late, would say, I need the help of a professional to help me navigate this decision. And the disconnect between all the decisions and learnings they made online and the right connection of the right professional at the right time was pretty broken. In retail, the concept is called the hell zone. You walk into the clothing store, salesperson says, may I help you? You hate it, the salesperson hates it, and you say no. In Macy's, that's like 30 seconds. And you say, like, actually, no, I'm not just looking. Like, I'd never go to Macy's just to look. I'm looking at the pant section, but Macy's, that person's gone, and now you just feel like a dumbass. In real estate,
and then you got to do the awkward thing where you don't want to chase them down, but you kind of got to chase them down.
This is why I did the whole business off of it. But the ones that are genius, by the way, Victoria's Secrets.
How do you know?
Well, because I have a wife, but and you should reflect on that this holiday season.
Merry Christmas, brother. That's a good one.
By the way, John does not own stock in that company, by the way. So
no, but they've really figured it out. You'll notice you're never approached before you get around that first table in Victoria's Secrets, because they know guys are just going to be like, no, they're just looking, but they engage you once you're trapped. That concept applies to everything. And in real estate, it's a year, 2 years, 3 years before you're willing to talk to an agent that can actually help you. Right. Our goal was to create that bridge and say, you need more help than what's happening on the real estate portal, and less help than you're going to get in a one-on-one conversation that you're comfortable engaging in. And so we wanted to create technology to answer questions, personalize people's decision-making, and bridge those two. And yes, so we got some patents in how to train algorithms, because the problem in 2016 was nobody, us, Google, anybody with no matter how many data scientists you have, could make the algorithms consistent enough to just engage in a flow. And so what we built is an algorithm that can engage you. And when it failed, rather than that being like, oh, I don't understand, we would kick it back to a human who in the loop would just assist the machine. So the machine would say, I don't know what this means. A human, and we needed lots of them, would train the machine, and then the consumer didn't have a bad experience. We had patents on that. We built huge operations for it.
Well, that's fascinating. So I guess one of the questions it's leading me to is that I'm assuming that technology now is so much more advanced that it's the human interaction part. I mean, it's essentially what AI is trying to replace, is the human part. I mean, are we getting close to that? Are we there? Are we like
the technology? If we had built our entire business on we're going to solve that problem, luckily we were smart enough not to do that, we would have gone out of business. Because now what both Bard and OpenAI have done is rendered most of that real-time training completely unnecessary. The conversation holds now. It's just around like, what's your comfort level with the risk of that conversation deviating from things you're confident in. We actually found, and I think you're seeing this, chat is a good recall function, but people don't seem to really want to engage with these machines.
Right.
We have 300 people talking to people right now because that's what they want. And
so you just get,
Is
here we go.
No, yeah, go ahead. You go first.
Sorry, because this is like, Keith and I have had this conversation a lot. So you're saying that the comfort level of people engaging with a machine is like, nah, I want to talk to a live person. You're seeing that in your own research.
We have patents on machines talking to humans that are very defendable and were violated and get violated points by very large companies. And I'm the one that puts 300 people on the front line. We're going to test, because we always do this, how behavior is changing. Are people comfortable in certain places talking to the machine? But historically, people want the human.
And is that, let me ask a follow up on that. Is that because the chat hasn't gotten good enough? Or is
the chat's pretty good? The chat's pretty good now. We'll see. Good now. I can fake it with you now. The technology's there that I can call you as James, and most likely in like a 5-minute conversation,
it'll hold,
trick you.
Yeah.
And so then like you're looking at how much do I trust that it's going to stay dynamic in the way that I want it, in those guardrails, and it probably becomes 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think there's this issue of, are you comfortable faking it, right? And standing by that. At some point, that just might be status quo. Right now, it's not. So I think there's risk in not owning that you are a technology. And then
you mean clearly articulating that to the human being that's trying to buy or sell or at the end of the process.
Do you think it's also from the standpoint of, this is such an infrequent transaction that people are just like, because I have this conversation a lot with people that are doing lots of stuff around AI, and they're like, we're going to remove, they say this, and I'm still not sold on it. Not because I'm in the industry, but I'm just not sold on it. They're like, we're going to remove the agent in 10 years. And I'm like, I just don't buy that, because a consumer does a purchase maybe 2 to 3 times in their life, and they own the house 8 to 13 years is the latest number that I saw before they resell. It's so infrequent, it's so complicated, not getting easier. The paperwork is not getting smaller, that I'm like, I don't know if I'm okay with doing all of this on a computer screen without some type of person that's like, I want to talk to a live human being saying, is this shit correct? Like, is this bot or AI thing actually, is this the right way to write this offer? Like, am I overthinking it? Like, what's your take? Because you're in this.
There's certain parts that will just be automated because you don't need the human expertise. Trust is the single biggest thing that drives this industry. The lack of it or the presence of it is the single biggest force in the industry. And that is with agents, and that's with consumers. And that's what you're getting at is, I just don't know if I trust this machine. Like, you do trust spell check, which is just a machine saying this doc looks good.
I very much
AI on contracts, you're going to trust it. Right. But the judgment on like timing, like, you're probably, depending on your personality, some people are just going to say like, if the data's there and I have the supporting data, I trust it. Others are going to want a human. Even in the most simple purchases, shoes, fully automated, fully digital, people still get human support, right? Wife, husband, kid, friend, they get the social buy-in. The bigger the purchase, the more you're going to want more, I think, supporting evidence of good decision-making, which a professional is going to serve that. I mean, think about financial advisors. Most of that is automated.
Right.
But you still have an expert that's
I still have a guy
algorithms and making decisions and judgment amongst those algorithms. That's what I think the housing market looks like.
Can I give you a use case example that I use? And this is how I think it will break down, but I'd love for you to disagree with me, because that's what makes podcasts interesting. But if you agree with me, then I sound super smart. So I think like you mentioned, it's very easy to get a bot an AI bot that could clearly explain and articulate the residential purchase agreement for every state in the United States, right?
Yes.
You know, what does this word mean? And right, that part's really easy. What's hard is, and an AI can help you even with an AVM or what they think it will sell for, but picking the number that you're going to put for the offer price, that's where the human comes in, because we've spent more time around campfires than we have around computer screens, evolutionary speaking, and we're used to relying on the tribe. And so I need to look in the eyes of another human being and have them help me sort through the offer price. Contract, easy. Offer price, hard. I need a human.
I agree. Here's how I think it rolls out.
Yeah.
I'll deploy a recommendation algorithm for price negotiation. It's a good idea. We have data scientists. We have the data. We can do that. That's like a smart thing in the spirit of what we do as a business to help agents. I think 70% of agents, my tool is going to be better than those people. Like that's going to be the reality. It's going to be more data driven. It'll be harder. I'll have enough N of experience. And then the super agents are going to just
the one that knows the area, that literally lives and breathes in the area, understands
man versus, woman versus machine situation.
Yeah.
But that is where this is going, in my opinion, where you have more experienced agents with a broader breadth of service and value doing more transactions because so much has been automated away. And then the million agents we always talk about that are kind of tourists in the industry, eventually they won't come back. That's my, if I'm going to be controversial, and maybe it's like controversial.
You're not being controversial.
That's what I think happens.
We've said similar things.
Yeah.
Well,
they're either going to level up or level out.
Or
right?
level out.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good, let's put a pin in that one, because I think that's a good ending point on that discussion. You mentioned that your original business, you shifted, at least from the original concept. Where, I guess a couple questions around that. Like, when did you know you needed to pivot? And then how, I just love to know like the thought process on that. It's like, okay, you have all these patents on AI. You're now back to human beings, with a combination, but you're relying on the human part. What was that? When did you realize that pivot needed to occur? Why? And then how did you reshift the culture of your business in a slightly different direction or a big direction?
There's a little bit of founder spin in how I'm going to say this. I know that, like I can feel it, but I'm still going to say it, which is I don't use the word pivot, and I legitimately don't feel like we have. Like it is. I think the superpower of this company has been pragmatic and egoless decision making at every step of the way. I mean, our investors in the Series A were like, "Oh, these guys are AI geniuses," and I was like, "Cool, I'm going to go hire 300 people in St. Lucia.
I'm going to go open a call center."
And then we're the AI guys, and I'm like, "No, we're going to go partner with the biggest group of working professionals in the industry, Keller Williams, right?" And so we've just been really like, it doesn't matter how you solve the problem, just solve it. And so you build things, you buy things, you partner. And the way that I said, the world doesn't need another Zillow and it doesn't need another Next Home or Keller Williams. And I kind of stayed in the middle. And then I was like, crap, a lot of the way that these portals engage and learn about consumers and then hand them off isn't aligned. So I need to control that. And then I'm like, well, some of the logic of what consumer meets what agent and what supporting technology goes through. So I need to control that. So we kind of just gone middle out. Throughout the whole business. So
it's not really pivot, it's expansion.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And it's a commitment to the ideal, right? Commitment to the end goal, because it's never a straight line in business anyway.
No, that's right.
There's probably someone listening to this right now, because I don't know if you've heard, but residential real estate's been less fun the last 24 months, who is thinking that they need a pivot or need to tweak or change how they're. Can you talk about that? You touched on it a little, but can you unpack a little more deeply that process of identifying, if we don't want to use the word pivot, when we're going to widen the aperture for thought or how we would approach it?
Yeah, I think, look, generally, we have done a good job of a business figuring out what problems we're trying to solve and then breaking them down to understand the problem and then just going and solving them. I think what you're alluding to is something that we have been, there are unfortunately, several things that this company has faced that have nearly put us out of business since the beginning, right? Like we were going to take money from a very large real estate brokerage as a fundraise. And a week before that round closed, the CEO of that company left the company. A week later, the second person that was going to lead the round stepped up to fill in, and we're like, we're all good. And then they were fired by Blackstone. That has never happened in the
Ever.
two CEOs.
Two CEOs in 2 weeks.
Nobody's ever matched it. One, sure. We have had those pandemics, things throughout the years. And what we've learned is that we are actually better when those things happen. So much now that it is baked into the culture of the company. Every single sync, all hands company sync, for the last several years, we have been beating into the culture this concept of dangerous opportunity, which is the direct Chinese translation of the word crisis. We have on one slide, we showed every single sync, the Chinese characters for the word crisis, translated dangerous opportunity, and a picture of an F1 car, and the quote that you can't pass 15 cars when the sun is shining, but you can in the rain. I have been saying since the beginning of the company that the single biggest threat to this company would be forever boom times. Now, candidly, I thought in 2015 that we were going to have a market crash. So I've been really wrong. And so some of that was like, oh, it's going to crash. That'll be good for us. But I do believe tough times is when entrepreneurs actually get their footing.
Right.
If money is free and nobody has to work, zero shot for us newbies and entrepreneurs that are outmatched in resources, inventing new things that actually change the world and gaining market share. But when things are falling apart, that's the opportunity. And so I think it's just finding that opportunity. Now, danger is a part of that
is part of the translation.
I do remind people that the F1 driver Senna, the Brazilian F1 driver, that's quote I just referenced, did die in a car crash.
I was about to say I follow F1, so I knew the reference.
He died. Now, I will say Zillow should be paying attention to how he died, not me, because he didn't die passing 15 cars. He died as the lead car, which he eventually got to. But the concept in F1 makes a ton of sense because you don't stand a shot if the car ahead of you is better driver with better technology and you're in the back. It's just
you're going to stay there. Yeah.
Until it's raining, and then all bets are off. It is raining. It is raining in this industry. So we should probably cancel the race.
I don't understand what you mean right now. Yeah.
We should probably cancel the race.
That's bad funny. Weather.
The language we
mentality is I think key to the question.
Yeah. The language that we use for it internally is leadership matters in times like this way more, right? It kind of doesn't when deals are just falling from the sky and so is money, and you don't have to be good to be successful, but talent matters in this environment.
What do you so let's talk about that for a second, because I think the reference is good. So it's raining right now, and we've got homes.com coming into the space. Keith and I joked on the last pod that we did that Andy bought the entire NER conference floor for his booth.
Was huge. It was.
What the hell is this?
I think it had like a bowling alley and racquetball courts.
It was like
crazy.
They had the Goo Goo Dolls for their concert.
I love it. By the way, that's one thing. Like, when you're going to go throw reckless amounts of money, you should get
the Goo Goo Dolls,
high quality, like fame, musicians, talent as part of it, because that's a good use of capital. Like, gives you yourself an experience and others. So that's one reckless use of capital that I'm supportive of.
I'm gonna be honest. I was invited to go to that party and I wasn't there because I had other things going on. But had I known the Goo Goo Dolls were playing, I would have changed my flight and come down to see them. So, So I guess, I mean, like you just kind of mentioned that obviously Zillow's sort of at they're the max of F1 right now. So what is your take on this? And I want to lead this in two ways, not just that, but I really want to dig in on, there's a lot of players in the space. And obviously, you also own a top 10 real estate portal as well. So I'm just curious your take on the whole, all of this stuff right now.
The clash of the Titans.
Portal Wars 2023.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Look, it is unprecedented level of competition for really it's Redfin, Homes, Movoto, Zillow are the ones vying for market share. Everybody has a little bit of a different angle. I think luckily for a couple players, this is America and consumers want choice. But there's a lot of noise, and the competition candidly is not good for anybody. So at some point it has to resolve, because more competition just means it's more expensive and more confusing for consumers and significantly more expensive for agents.
Right.
I think that will actually reconcile over time. It's not a good thing what's happening right now unless significant innovation comes out of it. But it is interesting. I mean, look, you have this huge company that has not served residential consumer real estate before, coming in and deploying the biggest war chest we've seen to try to unseat Zillow. And they're doing it. And I mean, Andy is just ruthless and is a great entrepreneur. I think it's amazing and inspiring. Guys like just using full control of his platform and a lot of his attention to go after number one.
You think he'll do it?
No, I do not. But I'm not actually sure he thinks he needs to as well. Look, when it comes to like my opinions on homes, like one, I don't bet on things that I don't fully understand, and I do not understand their strategy, and I don't know Andy. But I think that there's two forces. Two of the most powerful forces in our economy are the U.S. consumer, and especially when it comes to their real estate desires, and the U.S. real estate agent. I think Zillow mastered at the right time the U.S. consumer, leveraged the hell out of it to build a company. I think there's things they've done that have lost that traction, but they got that right. They totally got wrong the agent, and they are paying for that dearly and have been for years by underestimating the power of the agent. I think Holmes is on the path of doing the exact opposite, which is over-indexing on the I'm going to get the agent to fall in love with me and disregard what's important to the consumer. Because to me, the only platform that actually is going to win is the one that gets that marriage right.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe consumers need agents and several other service providers to help them. And I know that every one of those providers needs consumers. And so the magic is getting those things to work for both parties. If you over-index on either extreme, I think it's at the expense of long-term success.
Follow up on that. I was watching a report this morning by Mike Del Prete. It's amazing. Yep. And, you mentioned Redfin in there. And I've always, and just full disclosure, I've always admired Glenn. I think he's brilliant. Just hasn't been able to figure out how to make that thing work. And it's funny to me because there's another publicly traded company that always claims they have the best tech. And I'm like, you ain't got shit compared to Redfin. They have some of the best tech and have for a long time.
It's a very technical term that we use when evaluating technology.
Yeah. But
I can confirm with the diligence. It's agreed.
But you made this comment about, there's focusing on the consumer and focusing on the agent, and Redfin has done that sort of the same approach differently on the agent side, but they were trying to control that experience with the agent through W2, but really did. And I would argue still one of the best consumer portals in real estate. I mean, you got to give them credit. It's a beautiful product that they put together. But it just, They haven't been able to make it work, and they are in a serious cash problem. Like,
yeah, it's sad. I mean, there's no doubt their technology team historically, I don't know what it is today, how many are still there, but over the vast majority of the kind of last 10 years, they've had the best team just as far as output.
Just crushed it. Yeah.
The consumer experience is great. I think the two, ironically, I think there are three things, and all of this is cheap seats. Like, I read the public stuff, I talk to the CEOs, but I don't fully understand a lot of it. But from the outside, it feels like to me there have been two core issues of why they haven't emerged as the category winner. Because usually when you got smart people and the best product, that's a good. I think there's been one, their two-part strategy was wrong in the past. The discount they offered consumers turned out not to matter to consumers.
That's interesting, right?
And it just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, discount didn't matter. That wasn't what mattered. And the employee agent didn't give the level of service that they hoped for. So they basically charged less when the consumer didn't care, and then had a higher expense base when the employee didn't care. And then I just think they were too conservative to change that and scale their business. Because my guess is Glenn looked at the data a lot and wouldn't disagree with some of the things I just said. And I think an aggressive entrepreneur would just make quicker decisions on that. What's ironic is they just changed it.
I know.
Potentially the one time in industry history where those two things could be superpowers. And so that's what hurts my head a little bit, is I've never understood that. But right now I'm like,
with everything going on, like,
with everything going
your model was better positioned right now than it was. I'm with you.
The
I know.
Single time that you'd want to lean as hard into that, and they just killed both of those things from what I can tell.
It's funny having met him and listened to him speak multiple times. I always admire him because he's so brilliant and then so kooky sometimes, and it's just it's awesome. But like in a really eccentric way, he's so passionate about what he believes in. Though,
he cares deeply.
He cares deeply, and you made this comment of like just how they had to be looking at the data but didn't make the shift. It's almost like you wonder if he just got stuck in this belief that like, it's gonna work versus making that decision quicker. Cause that comment you just made is so valid. They should have been doing what all the rest of us have been doing the past 15 years, because the consumer didn't care about the discount. Now the lawsuits, which I don't want to get a lot about talking about today because we got more important things to discuss, but it's the timing for that of his model couldn't be better fit, and they're in such a problem financially.
Let me ask.
It's also the curse. It's also the curse of publicly traded companies, right?
Yeah,
it could legitimately be that Glenn is like, this doesn't make sense, but my investors think it does, and therefore it's really hard to go down that like education walk of saying the reasons you love me are wrong.
Right.
I'm going to change it. That's just tough. That's the curse of incumbents.
But Rich did it. Rich did it.
Well, Rich did it by replacing everybody and coming back in. And
I know, right? But no, I meant with the pivot on iBuying. Like he straight up just was like, this was a bad business. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but it was kind of, we're going to shut down a $1.5 billion worth of our division. Yeah. So we screwed up. So
I'm going to ask you both this. So how do you, how do you fight that sort of sacred belief, right? Whether you're public, I agree, there's massive institutional pressure if you're publicly traded, because you're publicly traded and you got to have a quarterly report, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, we all have sacred cows or whatever language you want to use as the placeholder for that. How do you fight against that for the people who are listening, who maybe like, I sense this a lot in the industry right now. There's this like tug between go hard and quit. Right. Yeah. And, when I was listening to all of us talk about that experience for Redfin, I feel like agents and owners right now are having a similar experience, right? Trying to decide between like, is this the time how do you buck against that? Or do you have a process for trying to evaluate? No, because there's this very strong push for just work harder, hustle harder. You'll get your unfair share, right? And then there's this other part where it's like, no, be smart and be like water and figure out where things are flowing and go that direction. How do you balance those two?
I mean, look, I think why you're going to see so much innovation, real estate in general, like the innovation cycle has been, the internet basically skipped us. And then because of the housing crisis. Yeah. So like we have our biggest innovation is a online newspaper of homes that we all have. And then the innovation wave came when there was free money. So that didn't stick. And so we've basically, this is our like early 2000 in this industry. There's not many other industries that have had this weird, just like missed 2 innovation cycles. But why? One big forcing function, like I want you to keep using Movoto. Movoto is going to look different, and it's already starting to look different than all the others. Like most of the point of this company has been get in the game and be at parity so that we can do things incrementally. Now you're going to see leaps. Some will work, some will fail. That's because I don't have a choice. And that is what ends up happening. Right now, I'm in a war with giants that outgun me 20 to 100x. Incremental isn't an option anymore, so I'm going to swing. And we've gotten some lucky bets or smart bets from the team that have landed and given us big leaps recently. But you're going to see that. I'm one example. You're going to see a lot of that in this industry.
Interesting.
Because we don't have a choice. And that is why all great like innovations have historically come out of very tough times.
Yeah.
Because,
where do you think?
I don't have the answer during peacetime, candidly.
Yeah. Well, and maybe, I think what we're sort of all saying is maybe it's not even it's possible, but improbable, right? Because you need that crucible to burn off the impurities of your ideas, right? And then when that happens, you end up with what really works because you don't have time to play mess around with all the stuff that doesn't.
Yeah.
The person that's done this most significantly in human history at scale is Elon Musk. And it is because he's gone through every cycle, but he lights his world on fire 24/7. So
regularly.
What? No way.
Constantly. And I think that's one of the key secrets to his success is nothing is ever okay. It's always an emergency. It's always not good enough. Some people can naturally create that for themselves. Yeah. Others need like an industry to completely light on fire. Luckily, right now, nobody has to choose if they're the creators or the takers.
It's on fire.
Of it now.
It's burning.
I think
that's interesting, though. Elon
the whole horizon is burning. So
if there isn't a fire, he'll go start one, right?
Yeah.
I
mean, I want to get these last 2 questions in, but I will say that I'm curious as whether are you going to get a Cybertruck before I make the statement?
Look, I'm in Austin. Some of these people are my friends and like friends. So just because truth's important, like I'm on the Cybertruck wait list. They just offered me
John
Model 3 in exchange, a little switcheroo. Hey, the Cybertruck's not coming, but you can have this Model 3. I like to book a seat in line when I know I can get a full refund in case it ends up, but I wouldn't be the first. One of my dearest friends is one of the first owners of a Cybertruck, and I'm going to want to know his experience for a year before I have one.
Well, I'll make sure we'll take yours out to the shooting range and see if it's actually bulletproof.
I really want to shoot one. I want to shoot one.
John will bring the truck. I'll bring the guns. So, all right. Two last questions. So just kind of a real quick one. Then Keith always finishes us out with a final one, but 36 months from now, what do you think the industry looks like? And I'm using 36 months because there's a lot of stuff playing out, obviously in the courts, blah, 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 blah. So where do you think we are in 36 months from Christmas today?
I don't honestly, I think you'll see trends moving towards more consolidation. I think the concept of more products and resources together, which I think Zillow's leading the front on right now. I'm going to bring mortgage in. I'm going to bring software in. That closed ecosystem, I think, will be a trend that is accelerated. I think from a commission standpoint, there's going to be more negotiation because consumers are going to be more educated on what has always been around, which is your ability to negotiate. I think most of the things people think will change, I don't think change. I think it looks very similar. I think there'll be some new category players, whether that's huge internet companies deciding that they're going to go all in, big retailers coming into the space. I think there's going to be more people that come to the rebound this time. And I do think platform consolidation, it's too fragmented right now. It's just a bunch of point solutions that creates a ton of noise and isn't good for anybody. So I feel like that's inevitable. I think that'll be the biggest trend that'll come.
I think what's interesting you said out of that was, consolidation, but this industry still looks similar 36 months from now. So, all right, Keith, take us home.
Sure. All right. This is one we always end on. If you were an agent or a brokerage or an owner of a brokerage, what's the one thing you would implement today to prepare your business for the next 12 months?
I hate answering these in a way that feels
just answer. It's all right.
Here's the problem. You can't answer that. Like the simple answer is for a new agent, they should be doing significantly different things than a top agent for Fair. So I'll lean into, if I am a top agent and I have a business that is significant, call it I'm part of a stable team, or I do over 25 transactions a year for the last 5 years myself. So you're
making a living selling residential real estate.
I'm not going to go plug a technology. Clearly you should check out OJO.com or Movoto.com. We have things we want to bring to you, but I would just be thinking about, how do I diversify the set of value I can provide to consumers? That is data and services, because every single situation of housing we've seen like this, where we're at record lows, is followed by a massive comeback in transactions. And the winners are going to be people that can scale more and handle more consumers, delivering more value. And so nurture your sphere, figure out more products, get educated on the diversity of products, right? Cash buying, things like that. I think I would be in the space of finding solutions like that give me leverage to take advantage of that shift.
I think that's a great, we'll pin it on that. I think the whole comment you made is a good way to end it positively, by the way, that there is a boom coming. Everybody needs to be prepared. It may not be tomorrow. It might be the end of 2024. Rates come down. Eventually things are going to go the other way. So John, thanks for coming, my friend. That was a really awesome conversation. We will have links in our description to OJO and Movoto for people to check out. Can't wait to have you back next year and get your predictions again and see what scorecard you got. So Keith and I just had those go around. We're looking at scorecards like, shit, we got a lot of that wrong.
Man, I looked at mine. I was like, golly, I do not want to write and explain where I went wrong, but I'm going to. Yeah. Thanks, John. It was fun.
Appreciate it. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Later.
Bye.
Listen, we care about you deeply, which is why we never want you to miss an episode of this podcast. Subscribe now. It's just a push of a button.